Everybody, Mr. Steve here, and we're gonna make a neat geometry nodes based procedural effect that's going to use proximity and split edges, and we just want to add this effect to certain areas. I'll show you guys how I did it. It's a pretty easy geometry nodes group, and even so, if you bring levels down to 0 and let's bring up our scale, I think I just made a new geometry nodes based rip region. So yeah, cool tool, share with you guys, and I will have the project file available so you can just grab it on my Gumroad. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys inside the tutorial. I'm going to be using Blender 4.4.3 for this. So let's go ahead, do our nice little split screen here, pull up geometry nodes, and let's click new. Now, one of the things you want to do is set up the split edges here. So let's just drop in a split edges node, and if you were to grab a scale elements node, you would notice that you can split these edges out. And what you'll get is a neat little effect where each face separates because now it's like its own little mesh island, right? So now we can actually subdivide the mesh and get a little extra geometry. And when the scale is at 1, we don't see anything. And the general idea is to build out a control group. So we'll grab a set position, and I want to build out a control group that is going to isolate splitting these edges for us, so we don't have to do all of them at one time, because who knows, maybe you don't want to do that. And I think this could actually apply potentially to some other use case scenarios. I'm going to turn on cavity here just to accentuate the edges so you can see them just a little bit better. Now we're going to take advantage of a very special and great node. This is the accumulate field node, and what this does is it isolates domain, a certain domain within your mesh object, and then pulls those values collectively out as like a total, leading, or trailing. And it just kind of depends on what you're trying to do. So for our domain here, I'm actually going to be going to face domain, and we're going to need a few things. So let's grab the original position. We're going to need that. We're going to need to get the face area as well, because the explode effect is going to depend on that. And then we want to also get the mesh islands, and we're going to be using the index as the group ID to help control that. So now we're going to need a little bit of math here. So let's pull out the total, and I'm going to divide the actual total here by the face area. We'll go ahead and plug that in. I'll make just a little bit more room here. We're definitely going to need that. Oh, and you may want to just go ahead and save your file. That's always a good thing to do. So the face area that I'm dividing, I'm also going to want that over here as the input value for the field. Now let's pull in some vector math right here. We can set this to scale, and I want to take the vector position and take our divided face area and mesh island index and plug that in. So now this scale will output our vector. I'm going to grab another accumulate field, and I want to set this one to vector. Let's go ahead and plug this in. And let's grab the same ID here, the island index, for our group ID. And now we can take the total here, and we can pull that out, type in scale, and have a scale. And we can go ahead and plug this in, and what we have is a very standard explode effect that works with the mesh islands. So if this is at 0, you won't see anything, and this could be some cool effect anyways, just the way it is. Now this is where the empty object will come in. So let's go ahead and drop in an empty. I can just scale it up and apply the scale. Let's throw in an icosphere. You can scale that down just a bit. And I'll apply the scale, and I'll parent it to the empty. And I think that's great. I just make it a little bit bigger so I can kind of see it. I'm going to bring this up on the Z-axis. And I'm going to lock in the workspace here by pinning it. And I want to drag the icosphere in. As is, let's see, it's going to be under the empty. There we go. Let's get the object info node here. And what we can do actually, because we're going to build on this some more, but let's just frame this out. And this will be our explode logic. And if you ever want to make it just look a little prettier, you can come over to the node panel. You know, you can drop this down. You can change the color for any logic and fields. I like to use blue, like a light blue. Looks good, and bring the label size up. And I don't think I have this saved, so I'm going to go to my desktop. Let's bring up demo stuff, tutorial, explode, and save. As you never know, it'll make a fool out of you in a second if you're not careful. So all that looks good, and I'm gonna start a new setup down here, and I want to grab a proximity node, and I'm going to use that geometry from the icosphere to cause a proximity effect on the split edges. And for this next node, I did a little bit of research and found out that the artan2 node would work good to kind of offer a correction, and then got into some of the math and my head just about exploded, so we won't be going into that. I just know that it works. So let's go ahead and grab the distance out. Let's type in arc, and you get the artan2. And once you've got that node, I'm going to plug the distance into the bottom value, because the top value is going to be my accumulated field divided by the face area. And when I plug that in, that's going to give me a value that's going to correct the scale that we're going to add up here. So I'm just going to add this in to the actual scale, and it may get just a little wild for a second, but don't worry, we can fix that. I'm going to add another scale node here, and then what I can do is say 0.05 or maybe even 0.01, I think was pretty good. And this does provide, grab this, Control Z back, let's save, grab the empty here, and this will provide some proximity, but it doesn't really work just yet, because we've got to switch this to relative, and then we've got to add in a raycast node, and the raycast node is going to take our target geometry as well. Only this is going to get our position, and if this is ever locked in, you can just press Alt-P and it will drop that node out of that frame. And I want to use this for my source position. So now that that's locked in, I want to control my set position node with the raycast is hit. So now I'll say, hey, if it is hit by the raycast, then go ahead and do the thing. And now let's just do a quick little bit of cleanup here. And I wouldn't mind outputting the levels so that that's controllable out on the node group. And let's go ahead, I'll pin this. So now I've got that control. I don't really need this scale. I mean, you could, if you want to output that, you can, but I definitely need my vector scale. Or my float output scale. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow with the proximity here, and you can just barely see it. We'll make an adjustment. But what you've got now is proximity split edges, which is pretty neat. And this can be used to explode out the mesh. Now, what I've noticed, and I just did a little extra housekeeping there during a pause. Let's take a look at this real quick. You guys can just see I've got the group input. I'm subdividing the mesh. I'm then splitting those edges. And then I have a scale elements node just to kind of show you guys. It makes absolutely no difference in this node group right now. And then I'm setting the position based on the island index and the face area with accumulate field. So I'm gathering that domain data, and then dividing that face data, and then plugging that in. And I'm scaling the position by that data. Then I'm using the accumulate field again for the vector, and I'm modifying that divided output with the arctan2, which is the math that I think that nobody even on Blender Stack Exchange wants to know. That's more of a dev. That's not even a dev thing. That's more of a math computation type thing. So if you're a math freak, you know, I'm not tickling your fancy today. So then I'm scaling that, and then I just have a scale output for control. Then the raycast with the target geometry is going to provide us with the position and the hit based on our actual target. Let's dumb that down just a touch, and dumb that down, and I think all that looks a little bit nicer. And a fun fact, you could actually turn your subdivide mesh levels to 0, increase your scale, grab your empty, and you've also now got a rip region tool that is based on proximity and geonodes. And now with this simple node group, I can explode the geometry based on the proximity of the icosphere, and I can increase the subdivisions if I wish. Then I may not want to see that the whole time, so I'm going to unpin, and I'll grab that object, go to the object properties, let's go to viewport display, and we can just view that as wired, or you can literally just hide it, doesn't matter. And so now you've got this effect, which I think is pretty cool. Of course, you can modify this in a number of different ways, change quite a few different parameters. This is just a starting point for you guys to kind of play around with. And what I find is that once I'm in here, I can add a little extra geometry. Let's see. We can also add a merge by distance. So if this is a little bit closer or possibly concave, that you're not causing any problems. And another thing here to note is you can go ahead and plug in other geometry. I'll just plug in a UV sphere. And now we've got this kind of peel away effect, which for performance sake really isn't too bad. Probably bring the subdivision levels down just a little bit. Doesn't work too good splitting the edges out here. 0.005 perhaps. This maybe could add like some smudge damage or something. So pretty cool. Maybe you could subdivide it, do whatever you want to do with it. But either way, really appreciate everybody watching. Thanks for being here. And just another thought, if you guys want to spread the damage out, just scale up the empty. You can use any other type of target mesh that you'd like. See you guys in the next one.